writers and readers, I'm Christy Stratus, and today I'm going to be doing a tag. I was tagged by Peter the writer. He is awesome, by the way. Go check out his channel. He has a lot of writing advice, and he has some vlogs that he's doing now. You can ask him questions. He does tags. He's a booktuber and a writer, so definitely check him out. He's really fun. He tagged me in a Writer's Life for Me tag, which I believe he invented. Totally cool. So I'm excited to be doing this one. Let's get right into it. Okay, the first question is, what kind of writer are you? And it ranges from like fiction, poetry, screenplays, nonfiction. My favorite is fiction. I write nonfiction here and there, but it's more like paper type of thing, you know, essays, things like that. So my main thing that I like to write is fiction. Dark psychological historical fiction is Anatomy of a Darkened Heart and the whole Dark Victoriana collection. But I also write, a lot of my stuff is dark fiction. Besides that, I write poetry. Most of my poetry centers around nature, and so do my haikus. I love writing haikus. You can see those on Instagram. I put them up there. But otherwise, I don't really do screenplays. I love to read plays, and I'd love someday to write a play, but I don't feel that I'm at that point yet. I'm just going to keep reading them, and at some point it'll hit me, this is the time to do a play, and I'm ready to do it. Question number 2. When did you start writing? What made you want to try it? Okay, well, I've always been a writer ever since I could write. Before I could write, I used to like expand on stories that my parents would read to me and stuff like that. I would stand like in front of the fireplace and start expanding on these stories. It was kind of funny. There are some fun home movies about that. Besides that, like, I've always been a writer. I think I started writing with poetry, but I have an example here. This is from something like 7th grade, and this is this killer haunted house. I wrote it. We got to write like our own little book here. Ooh, I have a little comment from the teacher. Anyway, I got to do the whole thing, which was really cool. So we printed it all out like this, and it looks like a real book, sort of. You know, it's got the spine there, which is really cool. It's got the back with quotes from, of course, the New York Times. You know, they reviewed my book. I did have this on my blog also if you want to see more detailed pictures. It's on a Throwback Thursday, Throwback Thursday, TBT writer, and that was invented by, I believe it was Amy Winters. So you can see this in more detail, but I've always been a writer, and I started with poetry, expanded into fiction. The funny thing about it is that I always thought I would never write two things. I would never write short stories because I used to hate them. Now I write a lot of short stories. And I never thought I'd write historical fiction because it seemed too difficult. Now I write historical fiction. So anything I don't like, eventually I will probably end up doing. Question number 3. What inspires your stories? That's a really good question. I feel like everything around me inspires me pretty much, especially music. Music heavily inspires me. When I listen to music, I imagine a lot of stuff. Most of my stories have actually been inspired while I was listening to music, and my inspiration has run wild. But another thing, I'm actually going to start doing a little bit of gaming on my channel. Not intense gaming like here's how to play a game really well, more like these are the games that have inspired me and hopefully they'll inspire you too. So there are 2 types of games, regular like role play or hack and slash, and it depends on the atmosphere. Those can really inspire me. It's all to do with the atmosphere. I'm about to do my first gaming video, which is going to be American McGee's Alice. And that really inspired my dark fiction side. And I'll talk about that when I do the video, so be sure to watch it. The other type of game I like to play is hidden object games, and they are also heavy on the ambiance, and they come up with all these like really cool ways to go about opening things, really cool locks and keys, jewelry, and some of them are very scary and psychological, and some of them are just beautiful. So that type of stuff also inspires me. But I really feel like I get inspiration everywhere. Number 4, what themes do you like to explore in your writing? Well, I really like to include some kind of psychology in everything I write, whether that is a short story or not. You will almost always find in the pieces that I write some sort of nature, even in my short stories, even in flash fiction a lot of times there's some kind of nature in there. It always ends up popping up. I couldn't really tell you a reason off the top of my head why that happens, but it is in most things. The dark theme, that's in all fiction that I write. Not so much, sometimes the poetry, not so much the haikus. I like dark stuff. I like showing the dark side of things, especially like, for example, with Anatomy of a Darkened Heart. I would watch costume dramas like Downton Abbey, and I would look at how beautiful everything is and how elegant, and I would think, you know, I would enjoy that so much, but I would think I sort of want to show the opposite side of that, the darkness that is there, and psychological aspect of, you know, things that actually carry through any time period, but different time periods definitely have, like, the social norms back then were so completely different that you can really have a whole other psychological experience if you don't fit in like versus today where not fitting in is kind of cool. I really like to explore psychological themes. Definitely the idea of what determines who you become, whether that's outside forces or internal forces, or as you grow up or once you're grown up in that world. I really like exploring that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different themes in my writing, but you'll find those the most, I think. Number 5, are you a pantser or a plotter or a bit of both? Okay, well, for the most part, I'm a pantser. In general, I guess you could say that to a degree, I'm not really a plotter actually at all. I'm really just a pantser. What happens is usually I have an idea or even just like a vision, just like literally like an image. It'll start there and it'll expand and expand. I'll listen to music that sort of pushes it forward and I'll get just a little bit more and more. And then by the time I start the story, I have like a vague idea, but usually nothing that specific, and I have to go from there. So I jump around a lot in my writing, which is why I use Scrivener. Sometimes I'll start in the beginning, but I always jump around to the middle and then the beginning and then the middle and then the end, and at some point I have to write the end. But then again, like as I work towards the end, like writing these other parts, if I've already written it a lot of times, I end up rewriting it anyway. So I'm really not a plotter, definitely a pantser. Question number 6, where are you at in your journey? Querying, agented, published. I am published. I self-published. I didn't want to bother with traditional houses. I decided that I was just going to do it myself. I don't like the idea of somebody else touching my work. I don't like except for editing. Editing is totally fine, and so is proofreading. I don't like the idea of a publisher saying, okay, here's the trend, we need to change your work to fit it. There's no way I would alter my book just to make it fit into the mainstream, because then you're altering your writing style, potentially you're altering your vision, and unless there's something that really makes a lot of sense, like what an editor would pick up, there's just no way that I'm going to change to fit into something. I think that my work is my work, and there are going to be people who like it, and there are going to be people who don't like it, but I'm not going to go with a traditional publisher and then have them say, you know, this particular theme is also in, so we have to change your book. No, you're not going to touch it. So the only good thing about them, traditional publishers, in my point of view, is the marketing that they give you. And even so, it depends on how big you hit it. If you happen to really become big, then they'll spend the money on you, otherwise no. So that's my big ramble about why I do self-publishing. But anyway, I'm going to be self-publishing my second book, Lock and Key, in September. That will be available on Amazon and Smashwords and Barnes & Noble and everywhere. So I'm really looking forward to that, and like I said, I'm going to self-publish. I've also been published in literary magazines, journals. Some of them are online, some of them are in print. For example, there's Gineseko, which is a literary journal. I believe it's only online. I'm not sure if they have gone to print yet. 99 Fiction and a few other places that I've been published, so I'm really happy about those. Question number 7. Have you ever entered any writing contests? Finaled? Have you won? Yes, I have actually. Funny that you asked that question. Okay, I have 2 of them with me right now. The first one I won was the Poetry Society of Virginia. This was in 2007. I was a sophomore in college, and I'm super, super proud of this one. I actually have it hanging on my wall in my bedroom because it means so much to me. I didn't expect to win anything. I remember at the time, I was shocked. I was really surprised. It was the first time I had written something specifically for a contest, and I thought, well, because I wrote it for a contest and I didn't write it on my own and take my time with it and spend so many months on it, there's no way I have a chance. And I won the contest. So I was like totally shocked. It's called the Stephen Lee Barza Collegiate Prize from the Poetry Society of Virginia. And here it is. It just means so much to me, especially since at the time poetry was my thing. That was what I really wrote. And the other one I won was from my college, Lebanon Valley College, and it's the College Writing Award for Excellence in Writing in the Social Sciences. And I had actually submitted an essay that I had worked on actually for 2 semesters. And it was something that I wanted to submit to journals. It was actually an essay that was a comparison between women's fashions and women's role in religions. And it was specifically looking at Christian religion. There's a lot of other religions I could look at and do the same kind of thing. But that's what I did, and it won the award, so I was really, really proud of that. I believe that was in 2009, which was my graduating year, so that meant a lot to me as well. Question number 8. Who are your writer heroes? That's a really good question. I would have to say Shakespeare for sure. He is like my #1 writing hero because I really feel like I first became interested in the psychological aspect of writing when I read Julius Caesar and when I read Hamlet, and then Henry IV Part 1, Part 2, and Henry V, and those really heavily inspired my writing today, so I would definitely have to say Shakespeare. It's kind of difficult to pick and choose besides that. I like a lot of authors, especially like Keats, for example, in terms of poetry, probably inspired some of my nature writing. Much like music, I sort of pick and choose bits and pieces. Like I'll like a couple of poems from one poet, and I'll like one book from an author, or maybe 2 books. But I don't really follow a particular author. I more look for books that have themes that I enjoy, or themes that I'm not familiar with, or even genres I'm not familiar with, and I go from there. So really Shakespeare is the one influence I can say that I really heavily had. Question number 9, have you been to a writing conference? I actually haven't been to any writing conferences. I have gone to sociology conferences in college, but I've never been to a writing conference. I've been to book cons, but I've never been to a writing conference yet. Number 10, this is the last one. Top 3 tips you'd give to newbie writers. First of all, I think you know what number 1 is. Write what you want to write. Don't write what is popular if you don't want to. Just write what you want to write, and the people who appreciate that writing, they're going to find you. So I give that advice all the time to anybody who asks. I've given it in live interviews. I always say the same thing: write what you write, and that's it. People can read your passions. So if you try to write something that you aren't passionate about, a lot of times it comes through. So write what you want to write. My second piece of advice would be see what works for you, and that includes your author platform and your writing. So experiment. Don't just stick with what you're comfortable with. Give other things a try. You know, you can research yourself to death and still not find the stuff that's going to work for you. For example, like with my author platform, I used to do a lot of research on what I should put on each different platform, like Facebook, and the difference between Facebook and Twitter and stuff. And frankly, I didn't get much useful information out of it. I really just had to give things a shot. And that's the same exact thing with my writing. For example, I don't like to write in chapters. I just have a thing with it. I can't do it. I have a very hard time. So if I were to just do what everyone else does and write in chapters, it wouldn't come out well, because that's not what I do. I played around with just doing it the way I thought that I wanted to try it, even though that sort of scared me. It's so far outside the norm, but it worked for my book. I have had no complaints about the fact that there are no chapters. There's a lot of sections, and I made sure of that. I would say really just give a lot of things a chance, and if you even have like a vague idea of something you want to try, just try it. Don't be afraid. Go for it. And my third piece of writing advice is to really go out and put yourself in different situations and write all over the place. I did a video for this last NaNoWriMo season, 2015. In that video, I talked about actually going to a place where you feel uncomfortable being alone. For example, if you feel uncomfortable sitting in a restaurant by yourself, then you should go there by yourself with your notebook, sit there, feel awkward, and it forces you to write, because the only thing that's gonna, make you look like you're not just like, awkwardly sitting there by yourself, if that makes you feel awkward. Some people are totally fine with that. But for me, that made me feel very uncomfortable, so I had to write. And I wrote a lot of stuff that I was able to keep, and I wrote a couple of things that are sort of like deleted scenes, but they needed to come out, and so it did force my writing. It might especially help you if you have writer's block. But the other thing that it did was I wrote in several different places. I tried writing outside, like outdoors. I tried writing in a restaurant, like I said, in a cafe. I tried at libraries and all these different places, even different places in my own home. And some of them were uncomfortable, and I made sure that I did those more than once. And what happens is, now I can write literally anywhere I am without feeling like I can't write because I'm uncomfortable. It actually works in my favor now, and I forced that. I used to be so limited, and I used to say, I can only write at this time of night, and it has to be in this room, and everything has to be positioned properly, and like, it was actually to that degree, and I was so sick of it that I was like, that's it, I'm writing everywhere until I can finally just write whenever I want and wherever I want, and it worked. So that is my third piece of advice. I think it's really important, because the last thing you want is to be on vacation, have an idea, and not be able to write it down because you're in a place that you're not used to. So definitely write everywhere. If you feel uncomfortable with a place, do it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to tag a few other people, including, let me think, Joshua Robertson, Sunshine Somerville, and Joe Compton. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching this video or just watching me do a tag, then like this video down below, subscribe to see more of these and many more things, and don't forget to watch out for my gaming video, which will be coming soon. Thanks for spending time with me.